Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to try to give you a day one deck profile, deck building guide for new. Talk about after a couple weeks of testing and since we got the new cards and putting over 100 games into the hero, I'm going to give you two builds that I think you can take day one and really have a solid foundation, whether you're trying to play on an armory level, you're just getting introduced to the hero or the class, or whether you're trying to take this to Nats. To be honest, I feel confident enough to say that I think I can bring that level of value with this. If anyone has any differentiating opinions during this, please let me know. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. I've tried to do this a couple times, but I want to make sure this is correct. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully enjoy your stay. If you're a long-staying supporter, thank you so much as always. Feel free to check out the Discord down below, all that good stuff. This is like my third time recording this. One time my cat went crazy. The second time something else in the house went crazy. So it is 11:48 at night right now, the day before Mistville release. I'm trying to get this out for y'all. So be patient with me if I feel scatterbrained at some point, but I'm gonna try to go as in-depth as I can with these two deck lists. I'm gonna show you two ways I think you can play new, and they attack different things, or they just have two different play styles really for this meta. I'll pull up my first deck list here right now. So we kind of have to ask the question, why are we playing new? I think we're playing new to attack the aggro in this format. You can attack things like Zen, attack things like Azalea. New specifically over Arachne or Uzuri has a lot more game into decks like Levia. Decks like KO are really good. This can really put you a better matchup in a Guardian. She has a lot of powerful matchups that I feel like she feels pretty favored into that she didn't feel favored into before, or Assassin didn't feel necessarily favored into before. Where your weakness in this meta is Illusionist and Warrior, specifically Dorinthia and Kasai. Dorinthia and Kasai aren't like as uber unfavored as like Illusionist is, but those are like your tough matchups, right? So when it comes to the two builds I have a stealth-based build here, and I have a contract-based build. Now, the stealth-based build has contracts in it, but the contract build is truly like 50-50, right? Now, the reason I have two different builds here is because I really do think that new is kind of the brainchild from a play perspective between Uzuri and Arachne. She can play a little bit more towards Uzuri, where she's using reactions and unknown information and like really tricking your opponent and really throwing them off guard with disruption to be able to take tempo and like keep tempo and really just push like a lot of threats onto your opponent. She also can play a little bit more fatigue based, using cards like Mask of Recurring Nightmares, Contracts, and Stealths to just constantly be treating your opponent and really put them on a clock to say like, if you don't kill me, I'm going to deck you, and then we're going to have some issues, right? So I think she can play both ways. The stealth build goes more towards the Uzuri side, whereas the contract build obviously goes more towards the Arachne side. So why would you play both? I'm going to go like card by card and try to give you as much as that detail as I can based off the games that I have played. My opinions are based off my experiences. I've played a mix of Talishar games, testing with some team members, testing with some friends, discussions with a lot of people. So hopefully I can bring some value. But if you have a differentiating opinion, let me know. So when it comes to the equipment, we're going to start with the stealth-based build. And then when I go to the contract build, I'll tell you the main differences in like philosophies. So stealth, I think the reason you run this kind of standard new list is because it gives you game into most of the classes we spoke about. But what it does is it gives you a little bit more game into Enigma and to be able to go a little bit wider with cards like Enlightened Strike, cards like Looking for Scrap, and cards like even Siren's Call and stuff like that, and pick to pieces, being able to like still have all the good on hits that Stealth has and the disruption that new can bring, but also have like these kind of flexible pieces to be able to clear that board state and, you know, have a little more flexibility in those tough matchups. So when it comes to the equipment, the two things that are never going to change, in my opinion, unless you're just running a very wild build, which I haven't really seen an aggro build or anything crazy, is Mask of Recurring Nightmares and Spindle Spring Tunic. These are the two best cards in the slot. If you're on more of a budget, you could run Mask of Perdition and Redback Shroud, but I do think these are the two best cards in the slot. This card is insane. I won't go too in depth because I've talked about it in previous videos, but this card basically tells decks, you can't deck me anymore. I'm going to deck you. Not that you can't deck me, it's harder to. And I'm also, if you can't get my life total to 0, I'm eventually going to deck you and like fatigue you out. There were some times, especially in the decks like Kasai or Dorinthia, where they could just use their weapon value and the fact that they're dealing damage without expending cards sometimes to really whittle you down, and eventually put you in a situation where if you didn't like pitch stack surgicals, you both could be in like the teens and life totals, but you run out of cards and they have a better weapon than you do. Like you have a weapon, but they have a better one. And they're able to just kill you by fatigue. This really evens that out because you're telling your opponent, like, if you don't get me to 0, I'm just going to keep pitching my chi on attack reaction, and I'm going to keep taking cards out of your hand, which normally wasn't always the case. When it comes to the arms and the leg slot, that's where these two builds really differ. So the stealth, or like the standard base build, is running a Rousing Wave and Undertow Stilettos, whereas the contract one's running Flick Knives and Black Tech Whispers, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So why do you run a Rousing Wave and Undertow Stilettos? A couple reasons. One, the more spiky reason is Bonds of Agony. It allows you to have more value on this Bonds of Agony turn and be able to get this off easier. Basically, off a 2-card hand and Tunic, let's say you have Bonds of Agony and Just a Nick, you are able to do Bonds of Agony into Just a Nick, activate Tunic, activate a Rousing Wave, which counts as your second attack reaction, and then play the Fang Strike it gives you, which counts as your third attack reaction. So that's 1 plus 5, that's 6 total, plus the +3 that you get from this. That is 9. You're now coming in for 10 off of, a 2-card hand. On hit, banish a card from their hand and banish 2 other cards with the same name from their deck, which is super powerful. So it has a little bit more synergy with that Bonds of Agony to help you get to that 3 reaction threshold that you need to get in order to get it off. So it's a little bit more consistent in that nature. The other thing with Undertow Stilettos is that it gives you more flexibility on when you want Go Again. This says attack reaction, pay a resource, destroy it, create a Slither, and then you use that Slither to give Go Again. Slither says any attack. It doesn't have to be an assassin attack, and it doesn't have to hit. So there's certain situations where you're like, I need to have Go Again here against an Enigma in order to help clear their board and push a lot of damage. This gives you that flexibility. Whereas Black Tech Whispers, it has to hit, right? And sometimes that's just not going to happen. If they have a lot of ward on the board and some good block value, you can't always guarantee that Black Tech Whisper is hitting. So this allows you to have that flexibility in that matchup. I still think even in a contract build, you might want to run Undertow Stilettos in your side just to guarantee that Go Again when you need it in that matchup. But more testing is going to have to be done in order to see how that is. When it comes to the blades, the standard blades, in my opinion, are Beckoning Mistblade and Spire's Bite. They're just both really good. Beckoning Mistblade, I was off at first, but its synergy with not only your blues, but your opponent's blues in some situations can be so good. Being able to do like Beckoning Mistblade against, let's just say, a KO, they let it hit, it gets Go Again. You activate New with the chi in your hand. You play a Smash Instinct, I'm just saying a random blue, or a Pound Town or something like that, Agile Windup, whatever the heck, Mighty Windup, for basically free by activating the ability. It has Go Again and +1, and then play something else, right? Just super good. That's your basic equipment loadout. Yeah, and also with the arms and the legs, it gives you that 1 block while also giving you that 1 guaranteed use case. Rousing Wave is also really good off of cards like Command and Conquer. When you play Command and Conquer for 6, you have 1 floating. You're telling your opponent, okay, if you don't block 7, I could, if I want to, activate a Rousing Wave and push it to 7 to force that on hit. So that's the equipment. When it comes to the main board, for this deck specifically, I have a 42-card main board. I'm just looking for the best value stuff in the main. When it comes to the reds, Command and Conquer, not much you can say here. If you don't own Command and Conquer, in my personal opinion, the next best 6 power is actually Weakest Link from this new set. It's so good into Enigma, so good into Prism, which is your main trouble matchups. It's also very good into Levia, actually, and it actually has decent good game into KO, because if they let it hit and they have a Pulping or a Wild Ride, it hits that. So I think it's actually probably your next best 6 power, in all honesty. You could also make a case for Amnesia, for Zen, stuff like that, but Command and Conquer is your best one. Then we have Enlightened Strike. This, for me, mainly is literally only in the deck for Enigma or Illusionists in general. We need that Go Again. We need that more flexibility to help clear that board, and it gives us that. If we didn't have to worry about that, or if I wasn't worrying about that, which in contract version I'm not, spoiler alert, then I wouldn't have it in the list. I'd just have a really good assassin attack here on top of that, like Aura Desire Body, Annihilate the Armed, whatever the case may be. But we need it for that Enigma matchup, so that's why we have it. For the rest of the reds, Leave No Witnesses. I'm not going to say much about this card. It's good. You're going to run it pretty much in every list that's Assassin. When it comes to the reactions, most new lists I'm seeing, regardless of like the archetype, are on anywhere from 9 to 12 reactions in the main board, and then around 3 reactions on the sideboard. So most lists in their full 80 cards have around 12 to 15 attack reactions. The 6 attack reactions that you're pretty much always seeing in the list, no matter what, is 3 Red Hiss and 3 Justin Nick. Justin Nick is absolutely insane. I literally had a turn today where I had a 3-card hand. Justin Nick was an Arsenal, and then my hand was Persuasive Prognosis and Justin Nick. And I ended up playing Persuasive Prognosis. They blocked 6, and I played 2 Justin Nicks to give it plus 10. So now Persuasive Prognosis was coming in for 11. They had no defense reactions. Because they were both action cards that they blocked with, it banished those 2. I gained 2 life, and then I banished 3 attack actions. 3 action cards. 1 from Prognosis, and then 2 from Justin Nick, giving Prognosis an additional banish. So I gained a total of 5 life, and I dealt 6 damage. Insane. The cards just, when it lines up, that's like a super good lineup, but when it lines up, it's hilarious. Red Hiss, just really good. 1 for 3 block that gives your attacks also go again if you pitch to blue. Super, super nice. The flex reaction slot that I'm seeing right now is Venomous Bite. I'm seeing Venomous Bite in this slot. I'm seeing Spike with Blood Rot. I'm seeing Razor's Edge. I'm even seeing Inductment a little bit, but really it's Spike with Blood Rot, Razor's Edge, and Venomous Bite. Those are the 3 I'm seeing at this red slot. I like Venomous Bite, but if you're wanting to have even more game into Enigma, maybe you run Spike with Blood Rot in this spot. If you're wanting to help a little bit more synergy with Bonds of Agony, then you run stuff like Razor's Edge to be able to get that 3rd reaction off Tunic with one of your equipment pieces really easy, really good there. When it comes to the Codex is really good. It doesn't actually quite synergize as well as it does in Uziria or Arachne, which is hilarious. Because the card's stupid powerful, but several Assassin players are like, I'm going to keep this card in the deck because it's Codex of Frailty, but sometimes I want to take it out because sometimes it's actually annoying, which is hilarious to think about with how good this hero is. Then we have our blues. Some of these blues are personal choices. The blues, I tell you, will never come out of the deck. Bonds of Agony, way too good for obvious reasons. Just read the card. Persuasive Prognosis, again, if you're brand new to the channel and you want me to go more in depth, please comment down below, but I'm not going to on this video because just read the card. It's so good. And then Surgical Extraction, again, just read the card. Those 9 cards are insanely good. Levels of Enlightenment, also very good and new. Doing stuff like Dagger. Like I've had fun play lines where I've had 3 blues with Levels of Enlightenment, and I'll do Dagger Mistblade. They don't block it. It gets go. So my next blue gets go again. Then I'll Dagger Spider's Bite. They don't block that either. And then I'll play Levels of Enlightenment, choosing 2 modes. I choose the +2 and the draw card because it's getting go again from Beckoning Mistblade. And all of a sudden it's coming in for 6 because it gets +1 from Mistblade. 6 go again draw card. Like really cool value there, with 1 floating to potentially be able to attack again. So really good there. The other kind of choices that I made are Aura, Desire, Mind. This is really good because if you banish a blue, it'll draw a card. Your opponents don't want to block with blues because you can use them on your ability. So sometimes they'll block with a red here, which then is good for me because that means they're blocking with some of their more powerful cards. If they don't block it and it hits, then if I banish a blue, I have an arsenal for next turn. Really, really nice. Bonds of Attraction is kind of like the next best one for gaining life. And then Desires of Flesh I really like just because if they block with an attack action card, I gain a life. Super good there. When it comes to the sideboard, again, I am teching for Warrior, Dorinthia Kasai, and Enigma with this list. So Inertia Trap is good into both. It's good into Enigma because if she gets a +1 counter on anything and she attacks with it, because they're not allies, it's an attacking hero, so I will give them Inertia token, and that's really good against Enigma because a lot of times they want to arsenal a key defensive piece or arsenal like a chi card, transcend card for later so they can get the value off of that. It just keeps them off that arsenal, which keeps them off that value that they really want to have against you to keep their board state alive. It's also really good in a Warrior. Whenever they buff a Saber or buff a Hatchet, you just play this and they can't keep their arsenal, which is really good because they typically like to arsenal defensive pieces into you. So just really good card overall. Looking for scrap, this is mainly Illusionist tech, being able to just go a little bit wider, have a little bit more ways to deal with their board state. even into Prism, being able to run this like 5 go again into Dagger into a 0 for 3, hitting their Spectra, right? Or I'll even have like a 4-card handoff Tunic, and I'll do like Looking Witchcraft for 5, E-Strike for 5. That's go again. That's 10 damage total, and then I kill their Spectra, right? So super nice there. Picked Pieces is more Enigma tech. It's basically a better malign in my opinion. When you react upon this with like a hiss, it will go up to 7, and damage can't be prevented. So they really have to really block this out to respect it. Sink Below is just really good for hand fixing. You do run into some weird hands sometimes with new just because of all the reactions. It's just the nature of the deck. So being able to fix is really nice along with the defensive power. And then Siren's Call. So this card has been the most, I don't want to say like heated. It's not heated, just the most discussed. Like some people are like really on it. Some people hate it. Some people are like on it, lukewarm. I love it. So the obvious reason you run this is for Enigma to be able to pull their blues. Like this doesn't just, a couple things about this card. One, you can react onto a Dagger with this card. So being able to like play, Spire's Bite into this, forcing a card out of their hand, and then being able to replace the card if it's a blue is really nice. Also, this can pull cards that don't block. So like if I'm just going to use Leviah as a random example. If she has a Deadwood Rumbler in hand, you can pull the Deadwood Rumbler onto the chain and you'll draw a card. So you can like Mistblade into a Leviah and then pull a Deadwood Rumbler or pull a Tear Limb from Limb or pull her Doomsday if she can't play it and be able to draw a card, and the Mistblade still hits, which is super cool. It's good into Enigma. It literally forces them to pitch their blues away, or if they have no way of doing that, you're just going to rip a power blue from them, which is really nice. But it's also good into a couple other decks. I already mentioned Leviah. I think it's very good in Leviah. She runs a lot of blues to be able to fuel those Blood Rush turns and be able to take those. A lot of her blues are actually like really impactful cards, right? Whether it's a Wrecker Romp, it's in our 6 in her deck, or it's a Tear Limb from Limb, or a Deadwood Rumbler, or Convulsions. Like she has like really powerful blues that can do some cool stuff, or Barraging Beatdown, and this like can rip them, and it can rip the resources that she needs to help turn off Blood Debt on her next turn. Really good into KO. A lot of KO's power turns are fueled by a good blue, so being able to rip potentially their only blue, especially on turns like sometimes you'll Spider's Bite and maybe they're just trying to prevent you from getting value, so they'll block Spider's Bite with a card, and then you Siren's Call anyway, and you pull another card, drawing a card. So now they just block 2 cards on a 1-power Dagger, and you replace the Siren's Call, which is just insane. Also really good into Zen and Katsu. Being able to take a key blue out of their hand is huge if they're trying to have a power turn or trying to have a good value turn. It's good into all the Misfail heroes. Yeah, the card's really good. You don't have to run it in everybody. Run it into who you think it's applicable into, right? Like I wouldn't run this into Phi, obviously. Just not consistent enough. But it's definitely good into a lot of heroes. Then you have Codex of Bloodrot. This is Enigma tech. I've been really enjoying this. Sometimes I've had like a situation where they have like, a waxing Spectre, the 1 for 3 that gets a counter when it comes in if you pitch the blue. They'll have that, and I'll play Codex of Bloodrot, drop in like a Leave No Witness, and then play Leave No Witness. And let's say, they don't have a defense reaction. Now the Enigma has to say, okay, in order to keep my waxing alive, I got to block with 2 cards. But then on my turn, in order to keep it alive again, I have to pitch a whole blue, right? So depending on how many blues they have in their hand currently, they could really stunt their next turn. And it hurts their tempo, which then allows you to keep a 4 or a 5 card hand and use stilettos to really clear their board and take some tempo back. And then we have That All You Got. It's good into the 2 worst matchups, which is Warrior and Illusionist, in my opinion. Not so much Prism, but it is good into Enigma. It also has game into Zen and Katsu and stuff like that. So really good there. Then we have our 7 Chi cards, Transcend cards. I typically run 5 to 6. It just depends on what I'm feeling. This is kind of like the fluid spot. I do think that New's generally going to have 6 Transcend cards. I'm still trying to figure out like which ones I want to run. So right now I just have 7, and I typically board in 6. And I'm just trying like different combinations, seeing what feels good. The cards that never not go in are Passover, Homage, Path Well Traveled, and Sacred Art, really, and then Preserved Tradition. I think there's like, if you had to pick 5 that are always in your deck, it's these 4 right here, and then your Sacred Art. Rising Sun, Setting Moon, and Grains That Tip the Scale are kind of the ones I'm messing around with. And then we have Scale Peeler for the Warrior matchup. Dynamos are a bitch, so you have to be able to stop those. We have AB2 for Kano, just because this might go down to AB1 eventually. And then Vambrace is for Enigma. So that is the stealth build. Hopefully that was more in depth enough for you. If it was not, please let me know if there was a card I did not go over or a choice that I did not go over that you'd let me to have more discussion on. Then you have the contract build. So before I get into the card choices, why would you run the contract build? Well, some people want to try to, in my opinion, if I'm giving an arbitrary number, right? In a skilled matchup where you're not playing a Talishar random, I've played them too, so I'm not like dogging on anyone who just plays on Talishar. I play on Talishar all the time. If you're playing to a really skilled illusionist player, I'm going to guess the Enigma matchup, if I had to give an arbitrary percentage, is probably around 70-30 in Enigma favored. Prism, I would say, is like 80-20. It's not good. So some people have the line of thinking of, okay, I'm going to put tech cards into my list, like we just talked about, where I'm going to try to make that 70-30, 80-20 matchup maybe 60-40, 70-30. And I can, maybe outskill an opponent in certain situations and really shore up my bad matchup. Some people will just say, you know what? Illusionist is a very difficult class to play. We don't even know if Enigma is going to be super highly represented. Prism, although very powerful, is not a highly represented deck typically, at least not right now. I'm just going to tech for everything else and run like what I think is a more powerful, more concentrated version of my deck, and then just hope to God I don't hit my bad matchup. Sometimes that's okay. And I think with this matchup, with this build, I think the contract build, in my opinion, and when I say contract build, I mean like it has the same power cards that the other list had. It just has a couple contracts in it instead of like Enlightened Strike. Instead of looking for scrap, it plays more into the mill, more into the attrition, more into the ask questions, right? And then you just shore up all those other matchups. I feel like this build is better into Warrior. It plays a little bit more into Fatigue, has a little better block value, is able to really attrit them down a lot better, and it also plays even stronger into all the other matchups. Into aggro, it's even better into, in my opinion. Really good in a Guardian, really good in other matchups. You're just kind of sacrificing the Illusionist matchup, and then that's okay competitively. And then also for theme, this is a little bit more on theme for Assassin, in my opinion. So if you're wanting to have a little bit more thematic of an Assassin deck, if you're just trying to have a fun reason on why you should play this deck, that's why. So when it comes to the equipment, the chest piece and the head are the same. Recurring Nightmares and Tunic, as well as the blades, they're also the same. These are also preference. These are just what I think are the most consistent. Whereas different is the arms and the boots. So the arms being flick knives, this has a couple use cases. One, being able to tell your opponent you can't go to 2. If you go to 2, you die, because I'm going to flick it twice over 2 turns and kill you. Also, this has good synergy with Mistblade, being able to play like pitch a blue, play Spider's Bite, and then flick knives into Beckoning Mistblade to give something a guaranteed go again, or a blue a guaranteed go again, can be really good on a power new activation, or just good when you're trying to go super wide on like a 5-card hand. Really, really good for that. Be able to do that once a game. It just plays a little bit more into what you're trying to do in Assassin in that attrition-like game plan. Honestly, you could also run Conceal Blade in this list and then be able to go get Graven Call. You could flick Mistblade when the opportunity arises to have a good power turn, and then maybe you find room in the sideboard for a Graven Call, and then change out like 2 of your blues for Conceal Blade. That's just my thought. That's an idea. So that's what's the difference in the equipment. Oh, we also forgot Black Tech Whispers. So in my testing so far on this contract build, I'm giving an arbitrary number. I haven't like written it down, which I should have. I would say on average, I bring this step back 3 times a game if it's not an illusionist. On average, sometimes it's more. And being able to get that block value back over and over, like you think about it, if you bring this back 3 times, so like once, dies, comes back, dies, comes back, that's 3 block. That's 3 life you essentially gained over the course of the game. And when you count that in with other stuff that gives you life, like Aura Desire Body and Persuasive Prognosis, and Aura Desire Mind and Desires of Flesh, like I've told a couple of people, like when you count the Black Tech Whispers life gain or life value, and then the life gain from some of your cards, I would say I gain about 5+ life a game, which is really, really good, into a deck that already is very good at trading down the opponent. So if you're trying to get a little bit more value out of your boots and be able to get that reoccurring block value, but also kind of tell your opponent like, hey, if you don't block this and I have enough silver, I'm just going to pop. And you know what I mean? Like this sometimes psychologically can make your opponent block worse, in my opinion. Block where they don't have to. And then, you know, it's really beneficial for you. So if you don't care to have the flexibility of Undertow Stilettos and you want to try to have the value of Black Tech Whispers, this might be a better build for you. So what's different about this build? Let's look at the reds. So what did we take out? We took out Enlightened Strike, and that's really it, I think. Yeah, Enlightened Strike. That's all we took out. And we replaced Enlightened Strike with Already Dead. Now, I need to put Command and Conquerors in this list specifically. Sorry, I don't know where they freaking went. That's really weird. Command and Conquer is supposed to be in this list. I'll update it down in the description down below. But basically, you're going to have Already Dead in this list. I'll probably end up taking out these 3 pick-to-pieces because they're just not, like I said, we're sacrificing the Illusionist matchup here. But this is going to have a clean 60. That's what I meant to take out, was the pick-to-pieces. So Already Dead replaces Enlightened Strike to be able to give a little bit more value on banishing, being able to have a little bit better warrior matchup, being able to tell your opponent, like, hey, you have to respect this, especially now that you have reactions like Hiss and Venomous Bite that you can play off of Tunic onto Already Dead. It really, you know, you basically, like, imagine if Arachne and Uziri, like Contract Uziri, had 6 red cut to the chases, right? Already Dead would be even better. So it really puts the onus on your opponent with that. The other thing about the reds in here, because you're running like Red Annihilate the Armed, Our Desire Body, Leave No Witnesses, and Command and Conquer, your damage ceiling's a little bit higher, and it's a little bit harder for your opponent to block out these cards that are going to banish from their deck or their hand or whatever. Because if you're running like the straight blue attacks, when it comes to the banishing, like in the regular build, the only thing that banishes at red is Leave No Witnesses. Command and Conquer technically, I guess, discards their arsenal, but the only thing that threatens from arsenal and deck is Leave No Witnesses, whether in this one all your reds do, all your red attacks do, right? Plunder the Poor, Annihilate the Armed, Already Dead, stuff like that. And they all hit breakpoint, so it's a little bit harder for your opponent to block, and you're not so reliant all the time on reactions like you are in the standard build. So hopefully that helps a little bit. We're also running Annihilate the Armed, just really good silver generation, right? Our Desire Body I also put in the list. I want to be able, this is a really cool attack. I love this attack. It puts your opponent in such a predicament because typically, unless they just have blues that you can't really play, which are some opponents, it really puts your opponent in a weird spot because they don't want to block with blues because this is going to auto banish it, right? If it's action card blue, it's going to auto banish it that you might can use later. But they also don't want to block with reds because that's A, they're good cards, they're good offensive cards, and B, it's going to help you gain life from this card. So if they block with a red on this card, you're going to gain a life and draw a card, which if you're playing like your whole hand out, basically they just gave you an arsenal. So they basically gave you a 3-card value from the arsenal and a 1 value from the gain life, and they expended a card from their hand. But if they block with a blue, then they're potentially fueling your hero ability. So it's a really weird spot for them. We're still running Hiss, Justin Nick, and Venomous Bite. No difference there. We added in the Plunder the Poors here and the Rob the Riches. So that's at red. At blue, we're running a lot of similar cards. We took out Bonds of Attraction, and we took out, I think Bonds of Attraction is like the main blue that we took out. We still have Levels of Enlightenment here. Yeah, so I'm just making sure because I haven't like directly like card for card put these side by side. Yeah, we took out Bonds of Attraction, and what we're doing is we're mainboarding like the Transcend cards that we want, which we have a total of, I have 7 in here right now. I might actually go down to 6 and go into 1 more Rob the Rich. But we're basically what we're trying to do is utilize Mistblade to our fullest extent. Being able to pitch a blue and then play Plunder the Poor for 3 go again, and then you play a stealth card can really net you a lot of value. The typical play pattern that's not a spike turn when it comes to your blues in this deck is you pitch a blue, play Mistblade, they let it hit. Typically, most decks don't want to block this unless they have dynamos, in which case you're taking this out anyway. And then you play something like Plunder the Poor for 3 go again. On hit, banish a card. And then let's just say you're playing a Zen, and you play Mistblade, they let it hit. Then you play Plunder the Poor for 3 go again. Let's say they block it out because they're like, okay, I don't want to banish a card. It makes no sense to let this hit, and I lose 3 life and banish a card. I'll just block it. So they block it. Well, then you play a card like Our Desire Body. And this says, you know, if this hits, banish a card. Well, because it's still on the active chain, as long as you haven't broken the chain, Plunder the Poor's effect is also live. So if they also let this hit, then potentially that you could gain a life, get an arsenal, and make a silver, right? Which is super, super beneficial. Also, if they block this with a card that's 1 or less, again, Plunder the Poor is still alive, and that's where the power really comes in. Because now, since your stealth cards banish on block, if it's an action card, if that blocked card lines up with the contract that is live on the chain, then it still counts even though it didn't hit. So you'll still make the silver. So you can get a lot of recurring value with your boots very, very easily, right? Most of the other cards are pretty much the same. The difference in the sideboard, like I said, I need to take out Pick the Pieces. I don't know why this is in the list. I thought I'll update it. This is supposed to be Command and Conquer in the main board, so we're supposed to have 60. I'll update it here in a second after the video. We're still in Inertia Traps, too good of a card. Still in Siren's Call, Sink Below. A lot of the sideboard's actually the same. The ratios are just different. But we're playing more into that fatigue, more into that contract, more into that value from the life gain from both stealth and from the reoccurring block on your Black Tech Whispers. So hopefully this made sense. 30 minutes, 31 minutes is actually pretty good for this. If you have any other questions on some of these key cards or key interactions, let me know. Also, if you disagree with anything, let me know. This is a day one build, but hopefully this is extensive enough to really give you a good feel for, like, you know, where you want to go with the deck. There's also, I'm excited to see if anyone makes like a Redline Uziri style list. Maybe not Redline in terms of pitch, but Redline in terms of aggro and like tempo to like really just play into like doing like go again into disruption or something like that, right? I think that'd be really cool. Haven't really explored that yet, but I'm really excited for it. But yeah, both decks will be down below in the description. Definitely give me feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm super excited about this hero. It's the hero I'm going to probably be maining going into the new set. Zen's really fun too, but new just scratches that assassin itch. Assassin's really overtaken as my favorite class in the game over Ninja, to be completely honest with you. Sad, I know, given my roots, but just how it is. But yeah, if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. If not me, it's totally fine. Go to another Flesh and Blood creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff so we get more people seeing this game. Thank you all so much for hearing me ramble for this amount of time. Hopefully it all made sense. If something I said was off or wrong, let me know. It's totally fine. Yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk.